Now what will it be? Death or exile?
Welcome, guys, to another review from your Film Exiles. This one is going to be a dual review coming at you from Christian and I, yours truly, Lupe. We're very excited today because it's one of our most anticipated movies of the entire year. We've waited for this for such a long time. We've had so many discussions on it. It's finally here. We've finally seen it. We've partaken in the glory and the holy grail of our quest, and that is the Snyder Cut. Christian, how are you doing? How are you feeling?
I'm doing all right. I can't believe that we were having this conversation. Like you said, it's been how long? And we said it before, never pretend like I've been in this for years and years. I mean, I'm kind of a latecomer, but I've been looking forward to this as well. And it's way after midnight here where I live. I can't even imagine what time it is for you, man. I can't imagine what time it is for you right now. But
It's super late. It's about 4 a.m. for me. Okay, but we had to do this, and I am buzzing, and I've got so much excitement. I actually watched it yesterday, but then I watched it again in preparation for this review, and
very nice.
I am so ready. So, Christian, remind people again, where did you have the Snyder Cut on your list of most anticipated movies of 2021?
You know what? Now that I have to go back and take a look at it, I can't remember exactly. I think I had it at number 6. I believe it was. I believe it
At
was
number
number
six.
6. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. So I'll
All
go
right.
double check. I'm pretty sure it's where it was.
All right. Well, I had it at number 2. And after sort of, getting very excited about it, my number 1 was Army of the Dead.
Hmm.
But after getting excited about it and seeing like more footage come up, more previews, more trailers, and after having watched it, I feel like it should have been my number 1. Now, obviously, this is Monday morning quarterbacking.
Of course. Yeah.
After having watched it and gotten excited about it, do you feel that, okay, number 6 was a good place to be, or do you think it should have been higher up on your list?
I think, especially because when you think about my top 5, unfortunately my number 1 was No Time to Die.
Mhm.
No, I think when you go through my top 5, I believe it is where it should be now that we've watched it. I think number 6, right
Okay.
outside of the top 5. Yeah, I think it's where it should be.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay. So, without further ado, we're going to get into this review. It's a spoiler-free review. This one it's going to feel a little bit long, but trust me, we have more content coming out on the Snyder Cut that's going to be even beefier, even meatier, and so let's get into this one. It's going to be spoiler free, so don't worry. We're not going to give even a bit of a spoiler, but we are going to set the table for you. We're going to contextualize it for you, and we're going to let you know at least what to expect going in. So, first off, let's just start with general thoughts. We know what this movie is all about. We know the story behind it. After watching the Snyder Cut, what do you feel about the movie?
I'll preface it by saying it's so hard to go into this in a vacuum, isn't it? It's like almost like
Mm,
impossible,
mhm.
whether it's what you've done for the movement or it's what you've read, or it's so tough. So the last like 2 weeks, I actually had it muted. I was trying to just be like, you know what? I don't want to read any of the reviews that came out. I just want to go in. So overall thoughts, just, kind of raw right now, only about 45 minutes off of seeing it. I'm touched by it. It was very good. Um, it's probably not in my top tier comic book movies. I think it falls just out of that. It's not quite as good as Man of Steel or
Mhm.
Batman versus Superman for me. But man, did this movie right some wrongs. Holy crap, did
Mhm.
this right some wrongs. And we
Mhm.
could get into some of those that are
Okay.
still non-spoiler. Yeah.
All right. All right. Okay. Well, for me, this movie is as close to perfect as perfect can be. I am close to saying that it's a perfect movie for what it is.
Hmm.
But there are maybe a few nitpicks, just a few nitpicks that I feel if these were, dialed up a bit, if a better quote unquote performance had been delivered behind the screen and in front of the screen,
Hmm.
then it would have just transcended the entire genre. Something, something, so different from anything else out there that it would have been larger than life, and it would have been, a 10 out of 10. So at the moment, I'm sitting about somewhere about like a 9.5, 9.7, maybe even a 10 out of 10. But
Hmm.
as we discuss this movie, as I flesh my thoughts out, I don't want to nail anything down right now since I'm still, post coitus, so to speak. Um,
You're
I
in that
will come
embrace.
to a conclusion. But yes, but for now, I'm just gonna, smoke a cigarette, just lay in bed like naked after this amazing orgasmic experience,
There's a
and
mental
and
image.
and uh, and and enjoy it and enjoy it. So, a good place to start would be the question that's on everyone's, mind, and it is this anything like the 2017 movie? A lot of people said, oh, no, it's just a 2017 movie, but it's just going to have extra scenes like an assembly cut just added to it and polished
Mhm.
VFX, but it's basically the same movie. What do you think about that statement in your opinion?
I I don't think that's a correct statement. I think that I was surprised. I'll be honest with you, is trying to stay as non-spoiler as possible. I was surprised how much of the theatrical is actually still here, but so much
Mm-hmm.
more is added to it. So much more is added. There's so much more
Mm.
context. There's so much more backstory and characterization. To say it's the same movie, you got to be. I mean, I don't know what you're smoking, but whatever you are, please share it with me. But it's not the same movie. No,
I,
definitely
I
a different
I
flick.
have to agree. It's only the same movie in as much as you have same characters played by same actors, wearing the same costumes and the same
Hmm.
setting, and it has the sort of the commonalities of every origin like ensemble superhero movie, like whether it's Avengers or it's a team and they have to
Hmm.
find a way to like work together, and then when they work together, and they're going against like a villain, those things that are in every single uh, ensemble superhero movie.
Hmm.
Apart from that, completely different. And what's even more important is just when you talk about the class of filmmaking as a made film, the tastes in terms of like the decisions in terms of things like, for example, like whether it's simple things like humor or
Hmm.
action or soundtrack or editing choices, it's just filmmaking on a completely different level from what
Totally.
you saw in 2017, that it's laughable to compare them. I really can't compare them. Like, it's when I hear people like trying to make any comparison, it's laughable. They don't even exist in the same realm of reality.
No,
So
like
once
we've
people
we've
see
talked about
both films,
and I apologize for interrupting you. I'm so sorry. Is that
no
we
problem.
talked recently about like the Donner cut, and that is
Mm-hmm,
still very. I mean, it's a different movie, but there's so many parts of Superman 2 that are still in the Donner cut. It's still like you can see that it was
mm-hmm,
chopped up, but this,
mm-hmm.
it's just a different movie. It's a different flick. It's a totally different flick, and it feels
It
like a
is.
different movie.
It really is. It really is. So let's get to some detailed discussions. What do you think of another issue that people might have coming in? Is this in
Hmm.
about 4 hour runtime?
Mm.
What do you think of the length of the movie? It's the longest superhero movie ever made, and you just finished it. You did it in one sitting. Did you take any breaks, or how was your experience? And what would you tell people who are feel it's daunting?
It's actually we did take breaks. I actually had to walk the dog, and we took a one or two bathroom breaks. So I did pause it,
Mhm.
but it's not as daunting as you would expect. When you want to absorb something, when you want to watch something, it's definitely not nearly
Mhm.
as daunting as you would expect. And you know what, in this day and age, we're binge watching stuff left and right. I mean, how many times do you absorb 4 or 5
Mhm.
episodes of something in a single clip, and before you know it, it's like 4.5 hours. You're like, oh my god. So
Mhm.
it's not nearly
Mhm.
as daunting as people would think. I think it suffers a little bit where Endgame suffered. In the 3 hours, you got to be careful with like the pacing and stuff like that. But so I do have some issues there we can
Mhm.
talk about later. But no, the 4 hours are you should not be turned off by that.
Yeah, yeah. For me, I took two breaks, but I didn't take two breaks because I was getting tired. I
Hmm.
took two breaks because I wanted to savor the moment. It's
Hmm.
like, when you go to a Michelin, star restaurant, and you you have a meal, that you've waited for. You don't just want to just rush and just gobble everything up. You want to pace yourself. You
Enjoy
want,
it.
sip the wine, enjoy the atmosphere. And that was what was happening. I felt like, oh my goodness, I'm speeding through this. But I assure you that I really wanted to blaze through the whole thing. Even I, as a fan, someone that you might say is someone that this was made for and would be suitable for this material, I
Hmm.
was concerned about the runtime. I'm not gonna lie. I love Watchmen, and even for Watchmen, I have to gear myself up to watch that movie. That's not a movie I feel that anyone can just get into
Hmm.
and watch the entire thing. Although I love it, and it's a masterpiece. Um, but this is so well, finely tuned and finely crafted. And I found myself so engaged at every single moment, hanging on every single word. And I've just really got to give Zack Snyder a lot of credit. A lot of us who are his fans know him as one of the great filmmakers, but I think that this is a film that will begin to open the eyes of a lot of people who believe otherwise,
Hmm.
and a lot of it is due to things they hear on the internet, jokes that are being made, comparisons that are being made. But this was a gargantuan task to craft this 4 hour epic and make it still engaging. And oh my goodness, he delivered. Not only did he just do what needed to be done, he absolutely like delivered, and I'm so impressed by that. Next up, let's talk about the chapters. So, what do you think about the idea to put chapters in it? Do the chapters are they natural breaks, or are they like harsh, marks, you know, in the film? And do they add anything, or what do you feel about that?
I didn't think they were harsh breaks at all. In fact, I thought that they were pretty organic. It's a different take. It's a different way to tell a movie. That's like some old school style filmmaking, right
Mhm.
there. And you start getting into classic films when you start thinking about the parts and the chapters,
Mhm.
and everything like
Mhm.
that. So it's not something, especially in a modern superhero movie, that you would expect. But I have to admit, and my wife and I said the same things. I really wanted to wait to watch it with her, and we felt that it was pretty natural, and she smiled a couple times, as did I, at the chapter breaks, and was like, "Oh, that's cool. You like that.
Mhm.
You can kind of see what's coming, in
Mhm.
the chapter." And
Mhm.
I think that made sense. And the breaks themselves were very seamless,
Mhm.
and I didn't think they detracted from the movie in any
Mhm.
way. No
Mhm.
way. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I thought it was well done.
yeah. I think that the thing that pleased me the most was that I did go in thinking that, because I've never watched a Zack Snyder movie that has chapters. And even these days, it's rare to find movies that have chapters. Maybe
Mhm.
Quentin Tarantino still does that, and does that very well. But I thought that they would just be just sort of arbitrary breaks. But if this film was released as a weekly miniseries, it would
Mhm.
actually work,
Yeah, it would.
because
It would.
the two breaks that I took, after when I took those breaks, I immediately like picked up my phone and got a WhatsApp, and I was texting one of my friends to talk about what it is I had just experienced, just in the same way that we do that with series, like we did with like Mandalorian, or with um WandaVision. Wow, like this happened, blah blah, and talking about it like I just finished an episode, and I just wanted to engage in that conversation around what I had seen. So this movie, it would have worked as a
Hmm.
weekly mini series. It also would have worked as it also works
Yeah.
as a movie. And it just the pacing, as I said before, the structure, the breaks were incredible because you end one and you're like, oh my goodness, what's gonna happen next? Like, they say something, like a part I took a break was, not to spoil anything, but um, I took a break after chapter 2 and after chapter 4. And all those breaks, it feels so natural because you're ruminating on what it is you just saw, and then you're hotly anticipating what's coming next. Like, oh my goodness, what's going to be in the next chapter? It's going to be amazing, blah blah blah. So the chapters, very very brilliant, very well done. And I think, as you say, it gives a very classic feel to it and an unusual, different feel to it, which add to a different kind of tone. And that's what I want to talk about to you now. Tone has been something that's been heavily debated, heavily discussed. Even the director himself, Zack Snyder, talks about it when it comes to his movies. He's very specific, very particular about creating and crafting the tone that he wants to use to tell his story. In comparison to Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, how would you describe the tone of Zack Snyder's Justice League? And also, feel free to compare it to other superhero movies in general, in the genre, and even movies in general. What is the tone that people are in for with Zack Snyder's Justice League?
You raise a couple of good points there. That's like the one thing that everybody seems to get into these arguments about online, is the tone. And I did the review for WandaVision recently, and that's like the biggest thing that everybody asks, right? So what's the tone? Are we just looking at like a straight up sitcom? What's going on? So you wind up having this larger conversation on the tone, and that can like set people off. People are very set in what they want to see, what they want to experience. Do they want this comedy? Do they want this ultra dark, ultra serious, like whatever? So they're very set on that. Comparing it to Man of Steel and BVS, this is going to sound strange. It's actually lighter in those two movies, in my opinion. I really think the tone is a bit lighter. Now, that doesn't detract. That doesn't mean that the world-ending stakes that they're facing here, or the fact that we're getting more backstory on Apocalypse and Steppenwolf and everything like that, that doesn't detract from any of that. That stuff still holds weight. But I still felt that Snyder was trying to this was definitely out of the big three, out of Man of Steel, BVS, and Justice League, this was the more comic book feeling of the three. And as a comic book fan, that interested me because like Man of Steel had this very like grounded, down to earth, what would happen if like Kal-El was really this orphan of Krypton and got adopted by these two people, and he's not really a child of Earth. And then you and I talked recently about how Batman versus Superman asks these very adult questions, these different questions, but it's still a fantasy world with Krypton and everything. This movie definitely took it has a comic book tone because it's so fantasy. We're seeing other realms, other worlds, peeks into a multiverse, all that kind of stuff. So like it's very comic bookish, but it still has that Snyder-ish grounded tone. But he wasn't afraid to go into comedy here, which I appreciated. Wasn't stupid, wasn't silly. So, I think people should I think they got to open their minds when they get into this. I really do. Don't expect, like really funny, like over the top Guardians of the Galaxy Part 2 type of stuff, but maybe don't expect, really down like serious Man of Steel or Dark Knight either. It falls into a decent category that's somewhere in the middle and knows when not to take itself too seriously, which is something I really did appreciate.
Yeah. In terms of the tone, if you're expecting this to be exactly like Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, it is not. It's its own separate thing, but then it's working in this sort of beautiful space all its own. So I think that you can compartmentalize the movie into two major tones. It is a superhero epic, a gigantic, massive, operatic piece. However, the first maybe, I want to say 70-75% feels like Lord of the Rings. Like, as you said, not only do you have other worlds. So, for example, in Marvel's Endgame and Infinity War, you have other worlds, but these other worlds are more, they're intergalactic, they're different planets. There's
Hmm.
the space opera feel to it. That's how I described Endgame. Endgame is like a space opera. But then in Zack Snyder's Justice League, you're going to these mythical high fantasy worlds.
Hmm.
So, for example, the Amazons, right? For example, the Atlanteans, they feel more like these Lord of the Rings, sweeping classic fantasy settings. And it's such a mind blowing, transcendental experience to have that inside of a superhero movie. And just this was the point where my experience of it was otherworldly. I was like, I am so blown away. Like that, you know trajectory of the film was, to me, if it continued that all the way to the end, it will be one of the greatest movies of all time, period. However, once it gets to the end, especially the end battle, then it
Hmm.
becomes more of your traditional superhero movie,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
Then it becomes more of your big bombastic,
Hmm.
uh superheroes, fighting, and what we've come to expect of the genre. Obviously, not in a generic or mundane way. It is very Snydery. You have your slow motion shots, your epic shots. You have this visceral, bone bone crunching action.
There's a couple
Uh,
of money shots there at the end. I agree. There's a
it's
few.
it Zack Snyder has never been accused of not being a visualist, and he brings all that power to bear on the Snyder Cut. So in terms of tone, I think that it balances, it gives those two flavors. And I think what's for me, I see that as something they could have done better, but it's like a wish. It's not like it's not great. It is great, but for me, it's a wish. But
Hmm.
also, I can see that being a good thing for other audience members in terms of people who prefer Marvel movies. It's going to be an easy in for them into Zack Snyder's material. I think that this film is going to welcome a lot more fans of superhero content in general than his other films did, which were more niche, more specific products. But that's not to say it's not a Snyder film. It's still very Snydery. But this one, I think, has elements that people who felt excluded can latch onto a little bit more. And I think that
Yes.
it now feels like a true big tent in which everyone can enjoy. And some of those allusions are to the things you said about some humor that's quite quippy, snappy, if you want to say, but is always appropriate. Is
Yeah.
never included when there's like a huge emotional beat or something serious going on. And I appreciate that so much. That's the problem I have mainly with Marvel movies. It doesn't happen all the time. There's something notorious for that. You have a huge emotional scene going on and you're feeling for these characters, and then somebody just cracks wise, or the battle is getting dangerous and you're like, oh my goodness, are they ever going to make it? And then somebody makes a joke, and some people like that, and the movies are hugely successful. So nothing I say is going to put a dent on the platinum armor that the Marvel Cinematic Universe wears. But for me, and for some other people, quite a few people who especially prefer Zack Snyder's work, that has been sort of a problem with really feeling the stakes, the gravity, and the seriousness of these characters. But Zack Snyder does it a different way, and I feel that the balance is here enough to the point where Marvel fans will like this film, but then DC fans will also like it and enjoy the humor as well.
Yeah, and like I'm glad you brought that up because that was one of the things like I was kind of alluding to with when I said like I felt like in many ways reading some of my comic books as a kid even or even some of the books that I buy even now and collect, you can see that inspiration there in this
Mhm.
movie. And not just in the fact that it looks like a book. We know Snyder can visually recreate a comic book panel. We know that. He's done that already. We know he can do it. But that feeling, that coming together, the art, working with the penciling, working with the story, all that kind of stuff, you kind
Mhm.
of felt that ensemble type of feeling
Mm.
in this one. And I agree with you. I think that you're probably going to be able to see some people that before might have poo-pooed this
Mhm.
we'll watch it and go, you know what? That's what the movie should have been. And if we had gotten
Mhm.
that originally, I would have been all in. But that's not what
Absolutely.
we got, you know?
That's not what we got.
Yeah.
It was pushed too far in one direction, just in a very, very weird, abrupt way. But we will not talk about uh, Joss Whedon's Justice League 2017. In our roundtable discussion, we'll delve a little bit deeper into that. In our spoiler discussion, we'll delve a lot deeper into that, dedicating whole sections to it. Okay, so next up, let's talk about the aspect ratio. What do you think about the aspect ratio? Was this ever a concern for you going in? And did it feel different? Did you notice it? Was it a highlight, a low light? What was your experience watching it with the aspect ratio?
You know, that's a big thing for some people, and I got to be honest, it's not really a huge issue for me personally. You know, that my main TV that I watched this stuff on, my other two TVs are smaller, but the main TV in my living room is a decent size. So,
Mm-hmm,
you know, it really didn't. It was, I knew what to expect going in because
mm-hmm,
we've talked about it. It's been out there. The bars were, you know, they're on the sides, they're on the left and right, as opposed to that widescreen. And my wife and I looked at each other and were like, "This is cool. It's totally
mm-hmm,
fine." I mean, it didn't take away from the experience at all. I still
mm-hmm.
felt like I was watching a big budget tent pole film. It still felt epic. In my opinion, I didn't think it took away from it at all.
I completely agree with you. I actually think that for people who don't know, the aspect ratio is not widescreen. So in your widescreen, whether it's your 16 by 9, quite typical, you have bars at the top of your screen or at the bottom of your screen. If it's your 4 by 3, it just fills up, your whole screen. This one is 133 by 1, so it's boxier. Just think of it being like a box, and then you have black bars on the sides. If you've ever seen the trailers to this movie, they give you an exact representation of what it looks like. And some people have
Mhm.
been confused as to why it is, what the effect is. Is it just a stylistic choice just to be different or just to be pretentiously artistic? But it isn't. It was filmed to show in IMAX theaters, and
Right.
IMAX, to get that epic scope, they add to the top and the bottom. And when you add to the top and the bottom of your screen, you're going to have black bars on the side. I think that's just the most basic way, without getting a lot more technical, to think about it. If you want to make something more vertical, and you add to the top and bottom of your screen, by the time you condense it, it's going to add black bars to the side. And I didn't notice it in terms of it being a distraction, because, as you said, for me, my TV is big. It's 65 inches, and I turned out, the lights. I was like in the pitch, dark, watching it. So the black bars on the side, they just melted into the dark of the room. And
Yeah.
so, in terms of it being some sort of like seeing black bars on the side, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Just a square box in the
Hmm.
dark. Then, in terms of how it impacted the action, I noticed it in a couple of scenes. And these are not spoilers, because some of these you've seen in trailers if you've watched it in trailers. So, especially scenes where you have, a large expanse of space,
Hmm.
and then you have two characters coming head to head. So there was some stuff with Wonder Woman versus Steppenwolf. There was some stuff with Darkseid, and you have this massive space, and it just feels really epic. And then you have these small characters within the space, so it just gives us this epic, expansive feel. And I really felt the positive effects of the choice for this aspect ratio. Zack Snyder said he wanted to use it because you have more vertical
Hmm.
characters in this movie, people who are taking flights, people who are leaping from heights, and there are now a lot of them within the movie, acting and doing these superhuman deeds at the exact same time. So
Hmm.
the aspect ratio really helps to capture all that epic, bombastic, operatic madness
Hmm.
within that 133 by 1 aspect ratio. Also, it feels different, and so it just gives you a feel of something that's special. And the Snyder Cut is special. It is something that's unique within the subgenre and within movies in general, in terms of a director having his true vision and having this carte blanche and final edit that only directors like Christopher Nolan and James Cameron and Ridley Scott have. So it works both on a technical level and just deeper and having more meaning to it. Let's talk about the characters in the movie, and I think that's a good way to talk about also the plot. We'll weave them into the plot, but the Justice League as a team, how did you feel about seeing these 6 particular heroes come together as a team? And you feel free to make comparisons to 2017 Justice League, because I think one of the biggest problems people had with that was that they just did not feel that the movie was worthy of the team coming together. The team coming together didn't feel like this monumental, super badass ensemble. It just felt hollow. Was that the same here? Was there any difference? And what did you feel like you seen your Justice League on screen?
That's a good question. Have I seen my Justice League? I'm not sure about that yet, because I need Green Lantern, because a whole bunch of other people on there. But no, all joking aside, I this man, in terms of, if you want to just talk like characterization and everything, you don't want to, like you just said, you don't want to go too deep and start talking about theatrical Justice League too much. But that's your comparison. That's what you have to look for. I mean, that's what we've already seen, and it's very tough to compare the two because the characterization was almost nil in that movie. Was just a bunch of toys on screen. That's really what it was. And fine, it was just big, bombastic, and they wanted to have a lot of fun and threw it all together. Fine, whatever. That's whatever they wanted to do. But in this one, while I do have some issues, as we talked about, with like the pacing and stuff like that, and I think it is a bit bloated, the characterization is so much better. It's no secret. What I'm saying is not a spoiler. It is no secret that they fleshed out Cyborg's backstory here. And for the love of God, it's needed. It's needed, because if he is to become, as Zack called him, the heart and soul of the movie, what are you going to do? You're just going to throw him in there? No, you can't do that. To see the little bits that we get in his background, I don't want to say too much because I will destroy it. I will spoil it for somebody. Is so important. And there were some moments that really, it hit my wife. I could tell she was like, oh, she did one of those, she did one of those, like she hit her right in the feels. I could tell the little bit moments with Flash as well. I just think those things were done so much better. The interaction that Arthur has with the Atlanteans, I think that was important too, to show why the team can come together, overcome their differences. It's one of the things that Avengers did so very well, and this movie did not do. And now you get that. I repeat, it is a bit bloated at times, but I think you kind of, to get what he wanted to do, you kind of had to do that. And dude, it's so hard to even, now when you watch the two, it's so hard to even compare. There's literally no characterization in the other movie. Literally, there's none. And there's just nothing. And I even like the characters that we know, like really, Wonder Woman and Batman are the two characters that we know. But they're not so far removed from the character that we saw in previous movies. It's a natural continuation now of their characters. To me, that is what is so important. We can talk about Kal-El later if you want to, but yeah, it was just
we'll go into specific characters right now, but just for the team in general, as you said, the thing is, Zack Snyder designed this as the start of the Justice League. The team is definitely going to morph. I mean, we will talk about that more, especially in a spoiler review. The team is going to grow, and there are hints of that if you're paying attention to the narrative. There's some alley-oops and some layups that sets up that you're like, wow, when this comes to fruition, it's going to be some of the most epic stuff we have ever seen in cinema. And I just feel like the time that he took, you think it's bloated. I don't think it's bloated at all. I think every single frame that was added was absolutely perfect, because we have, as I said, is such a difficult task for any filmmaker, and that's why Avengers always gets its credit, just for the fact that it was able to bring big it was about 6 or 7 big characters together, and make this fulfilling ensemble movie of iconic superheroes. This movie is able to do the same, but in a different way, even more than Avengers. You get these incredible, like, emotional beats, emotional character arcs for several characters. If you have one emotional arc, powerful emotional arc for an entire team and maybe one character, that's a huge success for a movie like this. But in this movie, I can count at least four characters that get emotional character arcs, powerful emotional character arcs that are on a level with anything. And so to see the team come together, and have this camaraderie, it's more of, they come to trust each other and they come to understand that they need each other. And with all the time that's dedicated to building them up, you have a situation by the finale where they're fighting against hordes of parademons and the big bad, where the action has an emotional foundation to it. The action is bombastic and it's fantastic, but when you're seeing characters defending each other, working together, working in tandem, you understand that, wow, these guys are fighting for each other. They're fighting for the fact that they're finding salvation in the team. That's one thing that I love that Zack Snyder made about this movie, is that each of these characters are damaged, they're broken, they're lonely, they have no family, or their families are broken, and they are saved. Their loneliness and their emotional turmoil is saved by the Justice League. And because they're saved by the Justice League, then they're able to save their immediate communities, and then they're able to save, the world in totality. So you have a situation where they come to find out that this team that I'm part of is so important, it's so special. These people have saved me, and I'm going to give back to them. And there is emotional weight to them being a Justice League. I don't want to, spoil anything. This isn't a spoiler, but we know Batman's motivations have to do with how he feels guilty for what he did in Batman v Superman, and him bringing the team together. That's what his mission is about in this movie. You can see in all the trailers and the dialogue, and so he finds salvation in the Justice League. So fighting by their side, them being together, when he's throwing punches and he's doing his thing, there is emotional weight to him being in that team. And it reverberates with different characters. And this is not a spoiler review, so we're not going to talk about those right now. But just
I want to.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think I want to.
I know I've been talking a lot, but it's powerful and it's emotional to me.
No, and you're excited about it, and you should be, and I can feel the excitement. There was this, again, trying to stay non-spoiler. One of the things that the theatrical version, if the very end especially, kind of felt like just a bunch of fight scenes that they wanted to throw together to look good, right? And
they didn't even look good.
And they didn't really look good, exactly. And you had there was that one moment at the end when Jeremy Irons, when Alfred just goes like, "This is the team," ha ha ha. Okay, funny. So they, whatever, they're doing their thing together. What I missed was that moment. There's like that 3 to 5 minute moment in 2012's Avengers where they work as a perfect team in unison. Like there's that one moment, like Hulk stabs the ship, it gets electrocuted by Thor, he tosses something in the air, then Thor's picking two guys up, throwing them, then down on the ground, Tony suddenly comes in, he's helping Captain America and Black Widow because they need the help. Then all of a sudden they throw him into the air, he flies up into the air, and then he's helping Hawkeye, who's up covering everybody as a sniper up on top. It's this crazy 3 to 5 minute moment where they're all working in unison, and it's almost seamless. It's perfect. That movie never had it. And you just mentioned it, so we won't spoil it, but there is that moment in this movie, and it is that 3 to 5, and it worked. You're like, cool. You know what I mean? Like you're watching it, like that's what you wanted. The team is a team. Like it's really that was missing in the original version.
Absolutely was. And it's here, and as I said, it has emotional weight behind it, and that weight is built up over the long duration of the movie. So now let's get into individual characters. Do you have do you have a ranking of your favorite like superheroes? I'll start with mine while you formulate yours, and then we can go into character specifics. But for me, I am a Superman fan. I wear that on my heart, on my sleeve with that. And to me, I've heard a lot of discussions, social media reactions, and people put out their preliminary thoughts and some reviews. And in my opinion, people are not talking enough about how incredible Superman is in this movie. So to me, the number one character in the entire movie, in the superheroes, let's put it that way, is Superman. My number two is Batfleck, and we'll go more into why. My number three is Cyborg, and then it's almost neck and neck, but super close, Cyborg and Flash. Wow. And then Wonder Woman is amazing, so she is my fifth. And then the only one that I don't feel super excited about, but it's not terrible by any stretch of the imagination, still good, is Aquaman. I'd say the first five, so probably the first four have incredible character arcs and story beats and plot points and feats of heroism, and then Wonder Woman would come right below that, and then Aquaman's the only one that would be like, it was cool, it was nice, I enjoyed that. But that's how I rank them. So how would you rank the Justice League members in terms of how you enjoyed them or how they impacted you?
So my favorite comic book character of all time is Batman. He is my favorite one. My number two is Wolverine, so he's not in this movie. But
hey, he could be. You never know. There's some stuff going on in this movie that's just mind blowing, man. You have to. Hey, and don't forget, we've had a old man. Logan is in the future. That would be crazy. That would be crazy, Lord.
Before you know it, the multiverse completely opens up with Marvel and DC. Anyway, no, if I'm ranking them, I'm going to keep it separate from my personal ranking and how I rank them in this movie. So if I'm ranking them in this movie, it's got to be Cyborg number one, and it's because he had the most impact on me throughout the movie.
I will not disagree with that. Like my top four, they're almost is very interchangeable. I would not disagree with Cyborg as your number one. You're not going to hear any. I'm not shocked or nope. No. Anyone listening to this discussion, I've seen the movie. I understand completely why. Super valid point.
He just almost out of left field with how much I was impacted by his character. So easily he's number one. Batman, look, he's the guy that brings everybody together. It continues the arc and what he experienced at the end of Batman versus Superman. I won't go into any more detail because it'll ruin it, but I think he's easily for me number two. Surprise, it would be Aquaman as my third. And it's just because of how likable he is in this movie. Not, as you said, not super impactful, but I love the different beats that we got from him in this movie and the little bits about his family and his background that we didn't get in the first one. He's trying to prove something here, and I really do like that. After that, it would probably be Wonder Woman. Look, she's a badass. She's a goddess. Woo! Yeah. And she gets this movie that we're needed, sorely needed.
Not to cut you off, but after the first wave of initial reactions, Grace Randolph made a comment, and she said that studio execs were talking about wanting Zack Snyder to handle Wonder Woman going forward, and maybe direct the Wonder Woman movie. I also heard another reviewer say something like Zack Snyder should always have his hand in the world of Wonder Woman, whether it's directing, producing, writing, just whatever it is. And when you watch this movie, you will understand why. It's shocking because Patty Jenkins is naturally, she's a woman, she's you'd expect that, oh no, it would be best in her hands. No, Zack Snyder, the way he's able to craft this character the balancing act, the fine tuning, it's the calibration. It's magnificent. So you're also not wrong, like about putting her as your this is your number three, right, or your
That's
third?
four, and well, yeah, because there's the six of them, right? So
All
this
right,
is four.
so we have Batfleck, we have
It's
Cyborg,
Cyborg one,
Aquaman, and then Woman.
yeah, Cyborg number one, Batfleck two, Aquaman three, Wonder Woman four, and the only reason she's dropped a little farther in here is because she does a lot of just explaining in the movie. Like she's here to kind of move the story forward, and it's like, ugh, yeah, I wish I wanted her to do a little more. And then rounding out my final two, it's unfortunate, but Kal-El would be five and Flash is six.
Okay.
And if you want me to give you brief reasons, I want to be very careful because I don't want to spoil anything.
Let's dive into these characters a little bit, and I'll get so we can start there. So let's have a tiny debate about Superman, non-spoiler, and you tell me why he is a number 5 on yours, and I'll tell you why he's at number 1 on mine. Apart from the obvious reason that it's Superman and he's the best superhero. I don't care about Batman or Wolverine. Okay, but on a more serious note, why is he number 5 on your list? And is him being number 5, is that actually a bad thing? Do you think he should have done more, or been more, or where do you sit on that?
That's what I think part of it is, honestly. I think part of it is because I think I wanted a little more of him. So part of this is by design. Right. Part of it is design the way they wanted the character. It's no secret he's going to return. Of course, we've all seen him in the previews and everything. So let's not, that's not a spoiler. But the way he returns here, there are slight differences. Snyder makes sure that this is his own. It's his story. But to me, and again, I want to be very careful because of spoiler territory. Outside of when he returns, how important it is to see him with Lois and his mother. Outside of that, I was not impacted by Kal-El's return. And I think that's the biggest problem. It was more of like a ho hum. And that bothered me because I wanted to be wowed. I wanted to be floored. This is the Kryptonian. This is the God living on our planet. And to me, he was not Man of Steel. Like he was that was awesome. He was not even Batman versus Superman. It's still to me. And also, oh man, how do I say this without getting too spoiler? The black suit's there. We see it. The black suit's there. So that's not a spoiler. It was not done the way I wanted to see it. Now, Zack Snyder doesn't give two flying fucks what I want, right? He's going to do what he wants. But when I was like, oh, come on, man, really? Like that was, to me, it was not done well. So I have my issues with this. I have zero issue with Henry Cavill's performance. Zero. No problem with it. It's the direction of this particular character. It's still the Man of Steel guy. Like it's still the character from Batman versus Superman and Man of Steel, which I like. They didn't Josh Whedon it up, but it's still there's something missing there. Yeah, no fake mustache.
Okay.
Wasn't it so nice, by the way, not to see that? Jesus Christ.
Exactly. So we're obviously diametrically opposed on this. I thought that would probably be closer. I thought you'd be like, it wasn't great. Like it wasn't, my top of my list, but that doesn't mean I'm saying it's bad. For me, it was absolutely perfect. I actually cried tears, and I don't cry in movies. This is something that a lot of people like joke with me about, like I have a heart of stone and blah blah blah. I don't cry in movies, and I cried tears.
You have no feeling.
For me, I felt the reverence that Zack Snyder has for this character. Superman might not be in the entire movie. And we all know this if you know the basic plot structure of it. He's not in a lot of the movie, but you felt his presence through the entire movie. You could feel the vacuum of his absence when he wasn't around, with everyone trying to live up to his legacy, for everyone missing both his light, his heroism, and even his power and strength to protect as a protector of this world. Many times when they went up against Steppenwolf, there was just that feeling that the characters had, and also you as an audience member had, that man, if Superman was here, we'd be able to wrap this thing up, and these villains will not be talking all this crazy talk about us. We're a lot more badass. You guys are lucky that our protector and defender is not around. And you felt that vacuum a world without Superman, ripe for the taking. And when he was around, you felt, for me, I felt the weightiness of his presence. Like, people have complained about, since Man of Steel, that, this Superman's not light, doesn't have, hope and optimism. And they would, show you pictures of Superman, with the sun, pictures of Superman with kids, and be like, oh, this is Superman. They will show you, all these smiling. But in Zack Snyder's Justice League, this is not a spoiler. If you've seen trailers, you see a bit of it, but you get more of it. That hope and optimism Superman that they're asking for is in this movie.
Oh, he's definitely there.
He is here.
He's definitely there.
The scene with the cornfield is some of the most beautiful Superman imagery. There's no Superman hater out there that can see that scene and say, oh, this is like dark, it's gloomy. And at that moment, all the emotions of Man of Steel and Batman v Superman hit me. This is a character that went from being isolated, not knowing who he is, being ostracized in a way, and feeling a little bit lost and out of step with the human race in Man of Steel, to a character that in Batman v Superman was persecuted and paid the ultimate sacrifice. And then in Zack Snyder's Justice League, when he returns, you feel all that weight off his shoulders. He is light as a feather. He's as light as rain. And there's just this beautiful scene with him in a cornfield and him bathing in the rays of the sun. And he's playing with a butterfly. And tears came to my eyes because it was earned. This is what Zack Snyder has been saying, and I feel a lot of people owe Zack Snyder an apology. Let your apology be as loud as your criticism and your hate. Let me repeat that. Let your apology to Zack Snyder be as loud as your criticism and your hate. Because Zack Snyder said, and we who love his work always knew this, that this character is going on a journey. He didn't just want to present this happy-go-lucky Superman in the beginning and then you have nowhere else to go. That's how Superman gets boring. He's too perfect, too happy. Nothing can touch him. He said, I'm going to show, this Superman, but there's going to be character development. Isn't that what everyone talks about, when they're trying to criticize movies? Oh, there's no character development. Well, it was character development through 3 movies, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, until you come to a Superman who is standing in a field with rays of sunshine bathing on him. He is smiling and he's playing with a butterfly. Like, I was moved to tears. And then you get to the battle scenes and he's overpowered. I was just laughing the entire time.
He's like a video game at one point.
It's like if you played a video game and you put in a cheat code, that's basically what this guy was like. What the hell is going on? This guy was just playing around with a villain that people were having the hardest time with. But that is very accurate to the lore of the character. That's why a lot of people generally, don't like Superman, because this is a character that in comics, he's moved planets, he's done some crazy things, especially in like the Silver Age. But even in your normal comics, indestructible, one of the most powerful creatures in the entire universe. In every Justice League comic book there is, Batman will tell you, once the big guy turns up, everything will be okay. And you just felt that, wow, Zack Snyder loves this character so much. And me as a Superman fan and understanding the lore, I love that you could see that reverence and that difference between his power levels and everyone else's. Like, this is clearly like another league of superhero. He is, if there's a totem pole, not only is he at the top, he's floating far and above. He's not even on the totem pole. He's floating far and above in the sky above, the totem pole. And in terms of the black suit, I absolutely love the black suit. Zack Snyder, not to spoil anything, he didn't really go into, like technical stuff of the suit, but just by some of the scenes, and actually like one of them was in a trailer. I don't know if you're watching this, if you've seen the final trailer or not. You do see him bathing in the sun's rays and taking the rays. And so there's that inference of the
and I did turn to I turned to my wife because she asked me, she was like, "What?" And I was like, "Okay, pause for a second, pause." In the comics, I looked at it and I was like, blah, 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 blah. This is what happens. And she went, "Oh, okay, I
Yeah.
get it now." This is, I mean, she's a decent Superman fan, of course. So I thought she'd remember, but she kind of forgot.
Yeah.
Um,
And
it's exactly what you said, by the way. It can be, one of the things I do agree with you on when it comes to Superman is how difficult I think he can be to keep quote unquote interesting. You know, a huge Wolverine fan, as we said, and one of the things that Marvel made a huge mistake with in the comics over the years was, oh, you're bored with your line, you got a problem, you throw Wolverine in, right? All of a sudden your sales go up. Oh, he's a great character, he's fun. But outside of being kick-ass, how do you keep Wolverine interesting? Well, you keep Wolverine interesting by taking away his invulnerability. You keep him interesting by suddenly he loses somebody that he loves. His character needs to grow. When he's no longer, when he becomes savage, when he loses those controls that he has from the Weapon X program and everything like that, and he starts dipping back into who he was back then, a killer, savage, all that kind of stuff, a beast, loses his humanity. That's when he becomes much more interesting. And that was one of the things we did our ranking of DC movies recently, and that's one of the things I really liked about Man of Steel, is kind of breaking down that, to me, when he's Clark, he's more interesting. That's what I felt was kind of outside of that one scene. There was that one scene, and you did point it out. I was like, oh, kind of like pitch perfect, and then it went, kind of got taken away from me. So I don't want, and I hope you don't understand. I'm not poo-pooing you for enjoying this at all. It's just
your opinion is valid. Like, you know, it's just where we're talking about, and that's a beautiful thing about film, right? It touches people on a different level, and people take different things, you know, from it. So those are just interesting aspects of the portrayal of this character within the.
Looks pretty badass though, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean, in our spoiler review, we'll talk a bit more about all these things. So terms of, next up, on your list, you had Batfleck, but you never mentioned why. Batman is your favorite DC character. You never mentioned why you have him so high up on your list. I also have him high up on my list. First off, the difference between 2017 Batman and this, I think a lot of people have heard that, you know, there's more fleshing out of, you know, characters like Cyborg and Flash, and obviously Superman. People have heard that, you know, the mustache tragedy is not happening anymore. That alone makes this movie, you know, better than that. But why is Batfleck so high up on your list? Being that you know, you're a Superman fan. Could that? I mean, you're a Batman fan. I mean, everyone's a Superman fan, but you're a Batman fan. Could that have anything to do with it? But he's also high up on my list.
Of course, I mean, that definitely has something to do with it. But could we say that him, you know, maybe not saying, "Oh, something definitely bleeding," you know, that puts him high up on the list, just for removing that fucking shit right there? Will put him high up on the list. I don't
not like you.
I think one of the reasons he's really high on my list is because it was so natural from the guy that we saw at the end of Batman versus Superman, that clearly realized, I done fucked up and I made a mistake, and I will make this right. I will make this right. His words at the end of that movie, I failed him in life, I will not fail him in death. He kept that promise. He continued to do that. He wanted to get the team together. And actually, there were moments, without spoiling this, that you could see, like, if I die, right? If this kills me, I did what I had to do. I got everybody together. The world is a better place that I leave behind because this team is together, even if I have to give my life in order to do it. And that's not the Bruce that was necessarily in BVS, that brutal guy that had completely lost faith in all humanity.
Character development, guys. Character development.
Just one of the things, I think that's why I love him so much, and I still continue to in this movie. I loved him in the Dark Knight trilogy. This is a different Batman, and I think Zack kept him true to what he was in BVS in this movie. I think that's one of the reasons I have him so high.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I was surprised at how much of an inspirational figure he was for the League.
Right.
There's a speech that he gives in the movie. I was ready to run through 10,000 brick walls, top speed, for whatever the cause was, I was like, let's go, let's like whatever it is. They're like, Lupe, you don't have superpowers. That's not what I heard
Doesn't
when I
matter.
heard that rousing speech. He is truly, truly a leader, truly an inspirational figure for this league of people who are super. The amount of respect that they have for him is so admirable, and it's earned once again because he goes through this road, this emotional and very truthful road to bring them together. And there's a lot that's going on thematically that we're going to be discussing in the future. One thing about Zack Snyder movies that I've always loved, and we see in this movie, probably not as much as BVS because that's a completely different beast. It was trying to be something, completely different, is the themes that he's working with. And in Batman v Superman, you have a Bruce Wayne who has lost his way. He's lost his faith. You can compare him to Judeo-Christian figures like Paul, like someone who's persecuting the Messianic figure, and then he has a moment of meeting his maker, so to speak, and he turns from being the persecutor to the person who's going to carry the torch of this person's message. And that's what you get. You get someone who lost his faith, but in Justice League, you get someone who has gained faith and is now walking in faith. And if you watch the movie, the word, and that concept and that theme of faith is brought up several times.
Yeah,
so
it is.
As I said, people have a lot of apologizing to do to Zack Snyder because y'all could not wait for an epic saga to play itself out. This micro attention span generation that we have, just wanted to destroy the movies for what they were at that time, not considering the story that was unraveling and they were telling. And it's just like Batfleck was so good. To me, this film cements Ben Affleck as the best Batman ever. But that's to me. And another reason why is because amongst this league of ridiculously superpowered heroes, he stands toe-to-toe with them. He earns his place, and he kicks a ton of ass.
You know what, man? One of the things my wife and I said, we were so happy to see Batman fighting with like fantasy level / superheroes.
Yeah.
Like Christopher Nolan's trilogy is outstanding, and we know how great it is. That was a grounded Batman that could potentially exist, suspension of disbelief, I understand, but could potentially exist in our world today. Some rich asshole, right, doing his thing. So he could potentially exist. But to see Batman from our comic lives that we grew up with and that we continue to read to this day, standing next to Superman and Wonder Woman and Cyborg and all them and fighting parademons, you're like, man, that's what you wanted. You wanted to see that. I know Batman can kick the crap out of a thug on the street. I know he can.
We did not get that in 2017.
Not really.
2017.
Yeah, not really.
Totally out of his depth, and that was very frustrating to me. He's kicking a lot. He kicks as much ass as any other superhero in this movie, and that's incredible.
I'm appreciative, by the way, that Zack Snyder he doesn't have like a warehouse scene in this, but he kept those Panther-like moves.
Oh yeah,
that Batman had, which I really appreciate those movements. I really like that. It's more of a battle-hardened Batman that's learned from his foes over 20 some odd years of crime fighting.
I mean, for people who are Batman fans who are feeling like, oh man, it's the Justice League, so you're going to get all these heroes flying and leaping and hacking and slashing and shooting, and Batman is just going to be, sidelined. You're not going to be disappointed. You're going to be very proud to be a Batman fan. So we talked about our favorite superheroes and went in depth into Superman and Batman. In our roundtable discussions, we'll go deeper into characters like Cyborg, Flash, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman. But for now, let's move on to our villains, especially the New Gods. And when I talked about how this movie had a high fantasy, classic like fantasy feel to it, where it didn't even feel like a superhero, to be honest, was when we had, this whole setup with, as I said, the Amazonians, the Atlanteans, and then these new gods. Like, how did, like, my mind is blown and I can barely speak. What was your take on seeing Jack Kirby's Fourth World brought to the big screen? Which were your favorite characters? Were there any surprises? How would you describe them?
You know, unfortunately we saw some of this stuff in the previews and everything already, and you know, like, so we've had some of this stuff come out, so in a sense it ruined. I almost wish I didn't watch some of this shit before it happened. You know, seeing Dark Side for the first time, I was like, oh man, I kind of saw that already. You know what I mean? Like, I was a little upset, but that didn't destroy it, you know, in any way, shape, or form. Are we going to talk about Steppenwolf yet or not yet?
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
absolutely. You can talk about any one of them.
Number one, so good and bad, right? So we'll start with the good because I want to start on a positive note. Holy crap, is he a different character than before? I mean, it's not even funny how much of it.
It's
What
hilarious.
a different character. And not only that, I like the fact, I know sometimes like Thanos gets bashed because we understand him and it's not good to understand. I kind of like that. See, I like to understand my villains a little bit.
I didn't think that. I know some people do, but as I've said before, I will defend Thanos from DC fans. Thanos is a great villain, and part of the greatness of him as a character is the fact that you could understand him. He was designed to be understood and to be sympathized with, and Marvel nailed it. Thanos is like amazing. Maybe there's some slight problems with the logic of his plan, but let's chalk it up to madness.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's definitely, you're absolutely right. There's issues there. Not a perfect villain or antagonist, whatever you want to say, in any shape or form. But I like the fact that I kind of feel for him, and at times I even agreed and was like, wow, he's making some good points here. I like the fact that I don't necessarily understand everything about Steppenwolf, but I understand his emotion. I understand that he wants to prove himself. I understand that he's an outcast. I mean, there's so many things about him that are fleshed out, that he's not just some CGI fucking purple character that's just thrown out there for everybody to beat up on.
It was shocking to me. Like, that shocked me. And what shocked me was how quickly, in a flash, we got that.
Almost immediate. Like, it was
almost immediate.
It's now, I mean, I'm not going to say he's perfect, but it's just, it's such a step up from what we had before. And I want to repeat, I like to have some sort of emotional connection. Magneto works because you are so connected to what that guy is feeling. And it was so, okay, I don't know what it's like to be a new god, but the point is that, like, you could kind of understand. And when shit thinks that you might go sideways, like if he's not impressing Darkseid, he needs to get into his good graces again. He needs to win his way back. And when Darkseid tells him what he needs to do in order for that to happen, I'm not going to spoil that. You're like, Jesus Christ, really? Like, what the hell did this guy do? You know,
Darkseid. It was Desaad, and that's something that.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm like, and this is no spoil. Like, people will see it play out, but Desaad really surprised me.
Yeah, you know, like
that was a surprise character.
I wanted probably a little more out of him, just because of what we know from him from the comics. I think I wanted more, but how much are you going to jam in? I mean, the movie's already huge at 4 hours, right? But I think as him acting as a quasi, and I want to repeat, it is a quasi, kind of like a quasi emissary, right? For Darkseid, pretty much worked.
Like, I felt so much for Steppenwolf. Desaad kept on bullying him. I was like, come on. Desaad is such a hater. Like, dude, why are you such a hater? Like, Desaad, I like Desaad. It was almost funny how evil and sneering and hating Desaad was. He was a character that really surprised me. I liked him in a very weird, sort of in a very weird sort of way. The voice acting was incredible. The dialogue of the new gods is incredible. It's all Shakespearean. Like, none of it is like your regular conversations. It's all elevated, very theatrical, very grand, and very Shakespearean. Like words you've heard them talking about. My lord. They will conquer in his name, and have mercy on me. That, I shall. All of existence shall be mine. And
these guys are old, man.
it gave them that elevated feel, right? They didn't feel like mere mortals. They felt like everything they were about, their motivations, what they were doing, were beyond the station of mere mortals. One thing I loved about the Apocalyptians that Zack was able to achieve is that they don't feel like aliens. And aliens are not necessarily bad. For example, Thanos that I defend is an alien, is a powerful alien, but he's still an alien. These actually felt like gods, like if gods were going to exist, especially Darkseid. I mentioned how, Superman was in the movie a lot, but you felt, the vacuum of his absence when he wasn't around, and you felt the weight of his presence when he was. Darkseid is the evil counterbalance to that. There was this terrifying, fearful, grand heaviness that you felt when he wasn't around. Like this, whenever his name was mentioned or he was hinted, or anyone would have a nightmare, or we talked about the threat that was coming, Darkseid was omnipresent. And like, I'm so blown away.
Yeah, see, like I'm so happy you mentioned that, because like I actually feel, and you know how I feel about Superman in the movie, but I actually feel the exact opposite about Darkseid. We said in one of our episodes on the lead up to this that I was kind of hoping that Darkseid would be kind of this presence that you feel in the background, makes himself known on occasion, and that's almost exactly what happened. I mean, it was like, I love the fact that he was this presence, this pressure that's always there. And his design, by the way, awesome design. I mean, I don't know if I could have asked for anything more. I've seen a couple of people talk about like comic. No, that wasn't going to work. That was not going to work. Can we stop? Him being purple with like the blues, stop it. Wasn't going to work. It would have looked very cartoony, very kiddie. What they decided to go for, like you said, was a very goddish, very legendary type of character that looked pretty real. I mean,
we haven't talked about, the VFX in this entire movie. The VFX, especially creature VFX, are flawless and drop dead.
Creature VFX are very good in this movie.
Like creature VFX are very good. Look like his very like you can tell from his look that he's aged and he's old. He's weird.
Parademons look really good in this.
The sound phenomenal. It all just looks so gorgeous.
You know what I have to admit? Like, if you're talking VFX, and I actually think that Cyborg, who, as I told you, was one of my favorite characters, I actually think sometimes he suffered from some CGI glitches. Meanwhile, Desaad and Steppenwolf, they were out of control.
They were absolutely out of control. Especially like Steppenwolf, the decision to have his armor be made up of these shards of metal that react to his emotional states. The way, his electro axe was, bristling and sparking with, electricity and the reflection off his armor. And he was like a VFX. Like, if a company wants to make a VFX demo reel, that's what Steppenwolf was. He was just great looking at every single turn. And not spoil anything for anyone. There's an element of the character that was used really nicely that no one has seen in any trailers or anything. And I was like, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I was like, what is that? Hello? That's to spoil it, because I want people to be surprised and satisfied as much as I was. But some of that, it hasn't been hinted at or shown in any trailers. And it's a little thing, but it was really cute.
Yeah, but it was cool. I liked it.
I'm not saying, I don't mean cute like cute, but when you see it, you'll be like,
no,
you'll be like, what is that?
I know what you mean. And the first time you see it, like, what the fuck, where did that come from? But yeah, it's really, because I know exactly what you're saying. It's cool.
Hint of it. And it's part of the VFX sort of showcase that this character is. And just all of them just beautiful to look at, and mythic and epic and grand. So in terms of the villains, people will be surprised to find a lot more Darkseid than they expect. He's really in the movie. Even when I was thinking about what Zack Snyder's vision was going to be, I never expected that we'd see Darkseid. actually. I thought that this movie would not even have a single hint of dark side. I just expected he would be mentioned, and maybe we'll see more of the nightmare future, his omega symbols, that sort of thing. And then Zack hinted that, at the end of the movie, he said, you see the apocalyptic high family, but then to come to realize through trailers that he's in a lot more of the movie, such a treat. And I can't wait for what more is in store for us. In terms of side characters, some side characters to me of note: Alfred. Alfred, once again, is amazing. Alfred and Lex Luthor are the two characters that I think Chris Terrio, who's the writer of this, has the most fun with. They have these quips, these really intelligent, endlessly quotable lines. They like Alfred's lines. He's sort of like Batman's conscience, right? He's Bruce Wayne's conscience and confidant. So it's a lot of like philosophical, intelligent, clever lines that make you think. But he also has this dry humor and quips that give a little bit of a lightness to what are really serious characters embarking on really high stakes missions and quests. I also enjoyed Queen Hippolyta a lot, especially in the history lesson. I was surprised by how powerful she was in the history lesson in terms of being a warrior. You get the sense that this is someone who was like in her days of youth, she was like a savage, a badass, like almost at the level of Diana. When she's older, she's a little less, nimble. And so you get the sense that she has aged, but she's still a badass. And I love the way she leads the Amazons.
Absolutely.
Also, the Atlanteans really made an impression on me. Zack Snyder said that his idea for the Atlantean is that in water, they communicate through clicks, whistles, and these piercing sonic waves. And then when they want to speak in elaborate, words, they create air bubbles. And when a lot of people heard this, there was a little bit of an uproar on the internet that, oh, Zack Snyder hates the comic book movies. Like, this is not going to work. It's stupid. And the Aquaman movie comes out and they just speak in water, just like, they just completely bypass the logic of this. But I'm telling you, for me, I prefer Zack Snyder's Atlanteans because when I heard them clicking and whistling and making sonic waves, I was like, wait, what? It seemed so strange and so otherworldly, and it added to that element that I was talking about of this being a fantasy movie. They didn't just feel like people underwater. They felt like an entirely different species. But then it also worked that they could create air bubbles and they could speak, and that was never awkward. And you can see how an entire civilization could exist by having spaces where there's air, and then you can speak and manipulate air. And then for basic commands, things like go, come, attack, take a look, they have these like basic clicks. It just so imaginative and so interesting. Are there any other characters or that you want to like talk about? We had Ryan Choi, we had Martian Manhunter. I also think that Zeus in the history lesson, people are going to be surprised by how badass Zeus was. Like that
pretty good.
That caught me off guard. And for me, you can immediately draw some comparisons of some things that Zack Snyder is setting up. So with Zeus, you could tell that he was a Superman type of character.
Right.
And that gave me chills because it's making me excited for what's coming in the future. I'm telling you, if Zack, and he will be, allowed to continue this vision, my goodness, what's coming in the future is going to be so emotionally and it's going to be so heroic and so fulfilling. So what other characters, kind of made an impression on you?
There's one character I do want to shout out, but before I do want to real quick go back to what you were saying about Atlantis. And I wish they could combine somehow, like how alive, because one of the things about Aquaman, the movie Aquaman, I loved the fact that Atlantis seemed so alive and you had all these different species and everything. The colors were incredible. The costuming was so good. If they could somehow combine that with some of Zack's ideas, like the bubble, right, and how they communicate. See, to me, that would be like the perfect blend. I think that would work so well. Just because there's so much about that There's a lot about that movie that doesn't work, but but one of the things that I think does work about that movie is the design. I just love the way Atlantis
Mhm.
just feels like different, countries under an
Mhm.
empire and everything. But that I digress. I want to give a quick shout out. I know he's got more of a bit part, but Billy Crudup as Barry's dad,
Mm.
he's so genuine and so likable and so
Mm.
real and so
Mhm.
like you can feel the motivation for Barry there. You really can. And
Mhm.
his love at the end and his pride, for his son and everything like that. Not to spoil
Mm.
anything that happens, but nothing that happens with Barry's father should come as a surprise to anybody. But it's just so wonderful to see. And the bits that they have with one another, there's a lot of chemistry there, and he's just I think any of us who have you relationships with your parents and everything like that, it's just to see those little bits. I just really liked it.
No,
I would love to see more of him if we could in the Flash movie in the
when we
future.
when
I
we
really do.
talk about the powerful emotional character arcs, Henry Allen like contributes to that in
Hmm.
such big ways, and it's every single thing that you said. I thought that one another interesting thing was the character Dr. Ryan Choi,
Hmm.
who wasn't in the 2017 movie, obviously because he's a person of color, so just wouldn't allow that. But I was surprised by how much he was in this movie,
Yeah, yeah,
how relevant he was, and in you know typical superhero universe fashion, which Marvel pioneered, um, he's set up to
right.
actually have like a solo movie
That's right.
as
He's
the
already.
Atom. Like he's set up perfectly. Like if a director comes in and says, you know what, I want to make a superhero movie and it's based on this character, the Atom, he's been set up like teed off perfectly for that to happen. So that was like super, super impressive to me. What do you think about Martian Manhunter's design and costume and outfit? I'll start personally. That's one of the things I didn't like about this movie. For me,
Hmm.
it didn't work for me. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't my favorite thing. Unfortunately, it wasn't like horrible,
No.
but I didn't love it. What about you?
I would not. I would probably say I fall somewhere in there. I mean, I don't think we're spoiling anything. I mean, obviously, he's been talked about. So let's not spoil his look. I want the audience to see it and give us their thoughts. However, I'm with you. How do I say this? It fulfilled some of my comic fantasies. Let's say my comic book fantasies of what I think he would look like. Looked very costumey. You know what I mean? Like when we got off of seeing Darkseid and Desaad, and then you see that, you're kind of like, "Ugh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
like he
yeah,
could have been done better. But
yeah.
a couple of good beats in the movie that we won't ruin. I have to
Yeah.
admit, he did have a couple
Yeah.
of good beats in the movie.
Maybe we can chuck it up to the development cycle and them not having a lot of time, and it's something that can be improved in future movies. We'll see. But for me personally, it wasn't my favorite. It
Hmm.
didn't like ruin anything for me. It's something that I was really anticipating seeing and very curious about,
Right.
and it didn't sing to me. So the final thing that we could talk about is the Nightmare Future.
Mm.
A lot of people have talked about that, and obviously we have a bunch of characters in there. But what does that do for you in terms of? I mean, we do know that if there will be a GL2 and GL3, and we're going to have fully realized Nightmare Future. What do you think about those sequences and that bit of the film?
you know, infinite Earths, multiverse, whatever you want to call them, they're so integrated into comic lore. They're such a big part of it because you can go off and explore really deep, really great stories. You can explore stupid stories where people, visit goblins and demons or whatever, but you can really go deep and go hard if you want to, because all of them exist, right? They're all
Mhm.
canon, and there's hints of that here. That no matter what you do, right, certain timelines are still going to happen, whatever it might be, right? So I'm excited by that because like the Injustice storyline is such a great storyline, and even if it's not the main one, who really gives a crap what's main and
Mhm.
what's not, right? Doesn't matter because they all exist, they're all there, and they're all valid, they're all canon, and that's one of the things I really liked about that is it kind of whets your appetite for what other stories could we get. What if the main, whatever you want to call the main DC, right, goes off and does what they're going to do, and Snyder takes over the Nightmare verse. Well, holy shit. That's like right up his alley. I mean, that's like totally up his alley. So what I liked about it, Lupe, was the possibilities that it opens up. It was definitely a fun thing to watch just because it's a fun thing to watch. But I like the possibilities that get opened up, that you now have an opportunity to go in 5 different directions, or you could go in every single one of the 5. And that's what's so great about this. Storytelling that could go anywhere you want.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, same for me. It's very well rendered. It's so interesting. I'm not going to spoil anything.
I don't want to say too much about it.
Future discussions, we'll get more into it. It's as you say, it's just the possibilities that it opens up are so unique, so interesting, something that's never been done before. And I can't wait to see it. We got the sequences with Joker, and Joker in this. What a difference a director makes. The dialogue between Joker and Batman is so amazing. The way Jared Leto portrays the Joker is so on point. The conversations that all the characters are having in that scene, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I'm very excited for what JL2 is teasing. I'm so excited. So finally, let's talk about the score, and then we'll get our final thoughts, and we'll wrap it up. So what do you think about the musical score? That's a technical element of the movie. Are you big into what music does to movies, and what do you think of the score in this one?
Like, all joking aside, like, I know we're trying to keep it short, and I could honestly go on like an entire podcast episode about soundtracks and scores and how much what they mean to me. I think music is very important to a movie. I'm a musician. Watching music can elevate a scene. It can totally take you out of a scene. The musical score, in my opinion, can actually make or break a movie. Some people don't think that's true, but I disagree. I think a score can make or break a movie. It can also make a ho-hum movie suddenly seem more epic. There's so many things that scores can do. So if we're not going to talk about the soundtrack, we're going to talk about the score. I have to admit, and maybe it's because the way I was watching the movie, maybe I need to be watching the actual 4K version and everything like that. I felt it could have been done better. Now, the score for the original, for the theatrical version, was definitely not Danny Elfman's best work. It wasn't. I don't think it even came close to what he did for 1989 Batman. It wasn't even close. It was just, you could tell it was something that he threw together at the last second. And I don't know. I don't want to blame him, because I don't know if he was just part of this whole mess or whatever. But the point is that it just seemed like it was such an afterthought. The score in the original was such an afterthought. I liked the fact that the score in this wasn't an afterthought. And oh my God, I missed the Man of Steel theme so much. I'm so happy that we get that back. I wanted that Man of Steel theme back, because Hans Zimmer's theme is so good, and it's so good to get the Wonder Woman theme back and everything. But some of the score missed. I felt like it was missing certain things. The gravitas to me was missing. It didn't thump as much as I wanted it to, and sometimes I felt like he was trying to do something with the score to try to be inventive in my mind, and I was like, nah, you're missing it, buddy. You're not it's almost taken me out of the emotion of the scene. So to me, I actually felt the score was a little bit of a letdown. I hope I don't insult anybody by saying that, but I do feel the score was a little bit of I don't think it was his best work. I definitely don't think it was his best work. It was a bit of a letdown. I think he got a little wrapped up in himself sometimes. I could tell that he was trying to take it in a certain direction, and I was like, nah, it's not matching the characters. Some of the themes, like Cyborg, I think really worked. But some of the themes like Flash, nah, and I think like even like Wonder Woman's theme, it was missing some of that thump that we had in Batman versus Superman and also Wonder Woman. So there's a little bit that I think, and then if you want to talk about the soundtrack, the songs, we can do that too. But but yeah, the score to me was lacking a little bit.
For me, the score, I actually enjoy the score a lot more than I thought it would be. I actually went in with a lot of pessimism towards it, and I think that I might have set my expectations low enough to have been pleasantly surprised by. I had no problem with the score at all. Zack Snyder is very good at using scores at the appropriate time. And I think that Junkie XL's score, it was decent. I'd say it was good.
Hmm.
It's just quite a bit, it's just a tiny bit of a letdown that the score is not as good as the one in Man of Steel or Batman v Superman. Those are transcendental. That's Hans Zimmer, and we know that he's like, one of the old gods when it comes to these
Yeah, I know it's unfair to compare it, but you
yeah,
kind of have
but
to.
you have to because
Yeah.
the legacy that's been set within the same trilogy of movies. But where this was able to shine was it did use several of those themes, recurrent themes that bring
Hmm.
back memories. So, for example, when Superman fights against the League and it's kind of like evil Superman, quote unquote, they use Zod's theme, which I
Right.
thought was
Right.
super, super appropriate. Also you get Superman's, soft Kansas City, home life theme when he's on the Kent farm. So these are all like beautiful things that were missing in the 2017 movie, unfortunately.
Hmm.
You know, so yeah, I think we've had a more robust discussion than we anticipated. This movie is so massive, so big. There's so much going on, and we're going to have so much content for you about this in the upcoming weeks. So, do you have any final words that you want to say about the Snyder Cut, and then give us a final score as well?
I think definitely you gotta go into it. You gotta try not to go into it with expectations. That's almost impossible, because if you've been living this thing for 4 years or whatever it is, your expectations are going to be way up here. If you hate Zack Snyder, your expectations are going to be way down there, right? So you think it's going to be a piece of crap. And to me, the movie was not as transcendent as I wish it was, and it's not even close to being a piece of garbage. So it's very, very good. I think it hit the notes that I wanted it to hit many, many times. It righted so many wrongs that were done in the original Justice League. Missed the mark for me a couple of times. I have to admit, it definitely did, and I think it had some pacing issues. But overall, what a joy! What a joy to see him, right? To see what he wanted, right?
Mm,
To understand what led to this.
mm,
To see For Autumn, things like that. Like, oh my
mm,
God, like it's just it hits you in the heart. It really does. And just for that moment, you owe it to yourself. Just for all that I mentioned, you owe it to yourself to watch it and to enjoy it for what it is and understand this is what he wanted.
mhm,
This is what he wanted to show us. And this is what we were probably, well, mostly, I understand they added some scenes. This is mostly what we were supposed to get back in 2017. And this is what we should have gotten. And I think we probably would be getting sequels if we had.
mm,
So earlier. So if I had to give it a rating, I'm being I know it sounds like I'm being mean. I'm not. It is a high 7.5 to me to 8,
okay,
and I mean that with love. I actually don't mean
mhm.
that with hate. It's a high 7.5 to 8. Might have to redo my DC rankings after I watch this a second time to see if I put it in that top 10 category.
All
But
right.
highly enjoyable, and I'm glad I watched it.
Absolutely. All right. So for me, I'll start with my rating. For me, this is about somewhere between a 9.5 and a 10. I haven't
Mhm.
yet settled on it. For me, it's absolutely perfect. It's a different movie from Man of Steel and from Batman v Superman, which to me are both 10 out of 10s. The only issues I have with it are nitpicks. And for me, the issues that are maybe holding me from saying it's a 10 out of 10 are some issues that I just feel aren't transcendental. For me, for superhero movies or for any movie to be a 10 out of 10, it has to be more than the genre and do something different and something unique. And I feel like largely this movie does that. But then just at the end, it is more of a great, great superhero movie. Um, so that's my score for it. If you're a fan of Zack Snyder's work, this is a masterpiece for you. If you're not a fan of Zack Snyder's work, I think that you will really enjoy this and you will think it is great. It has a lot of elements that welcome more people into the fold. So, in
That's important.
conclusion,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
important. I think what you said, and I'll let you do your conclusion. I agree with you. I think that's one of the things that people are overlooking, by the way. I don't care if you're an MCU fan, you're a fan of the Fox X-Men series, whatever it is. I really don't. That's why I said you owe it to yourself to watch this, not just for Zack and for the journey that the fans did to get us here, but it's exactly what you said. There are elements here that I think bring a lot of these fandoms together. You got to give it a shot. You have to.
Absolutely. I agree. All right. So, in conclusion, superhero movies are about feats of superhuman accomplishments against insurmountable odds. So, it's very appropriate that the Snyder Cut is a feat of superhuman accomplishment against all odds. Not just in the fact that the fans were able to rally together and bring this movie from the brink of oblivion into reality against a huge multi-billion-dollar international corporation. But even in the creation of this film itself, Zack Snyder had the impossible task. Without the benefit of 10 solo films, he had to give emotional arcs to 6 superheroes. He had to ensure that a 4-hour runtime, never done before in the superhero genre, didn't feel long, dragged out, or boring. And not only did he scale these high bars, he completely obliterated them with style, in my opinion. And that style is a very important thing. Zack Snyder's Justice League feels nothing like the usual comic book movie, except for the final third act. Largely, it doesn't even feel like the films we've been getting from DC lately, no matter your level of love or hate with them. It's dark, it's operatic, soulful, emotional, bombastic. It feels largely like this high fantasy Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones-esque, epic, but with superheroes playing the leading roles. Zack Snyder has always been known to his fans as a master filmmaker, but I believe that this is his magnum opus on the grand scale. With Zack Snyder's Justice League, Zack Snyder cements himself as one of the greatest filmmakers ever in the blockbuster realm. Christopher Nolan, Ridley Scott, Steven Spielberg, James Cameron, the Wachowskis, and now Zack Snyder. So there's our quick quote-unquote spoiler-free review for the Snyder Cut. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Subscribe to our channel. Please give us a like. We're a small outfit and we are growing. Christian, why don't you tell the people where they can find you, and let's say our goodbyes.
Goodbye to everybody. This was good. This was a lot of fun, man. You can find me at both Twitter and Instagram at the same place. I'm at chart6363.
Very cool. And I have been yours, Lupe. You can find me on Twitter at LiveLoveLupe. You can also find me on the various social media app at LiveLoveLupe. We have been yours, The Film Exiles. And you can find us on Twitter at The Film Exiles. We're also on Vero at The Film Exiles. Usually I end our reviews, podcast episodes, ENN, with us punching out with saying our customary stay exiled. But this time I will leave by saying for on.